Story 1. I play this game called GeoGuessr, where they show you randomly generated Google Street View images, and you have to guess where the location is on the map you're playing. Global, United States, United Kingdom, etc. There are millions and millions of images. Once, I got one that was directly in front of my childhood home. Story 2. Got hit by 2 cars within the span of an hour. I had never seen a car accident prior, and I was crossing at a pedestrian crossing while the light was green. It was daytime, so there was no visibility issue or anything. The first time, I was walking my bike across, as one is supposed to do here, and the driver claimed she simply didn't see me. I went flying to the ground, but I was mostly fine, some scrapes and bruises, but my bike's wheels were so bent out of shape they couldn't spin properly. After that, I walked home with my bike to bring it to a repair place, crossed another pedestrian crossing, and got hit by another car. Just an all-around bad day. Story 3. I was once stuck on a crowded elevator in Manhattan. The elevator shut down, and since it was the early 90s, no one had phones or ways to call anyone. It was one of those glass elevators, so we could see the lobby and nearby hallway, but we were like 30 floors up, and no one had walked by for at least an hour. Just as people started to panic, 2 guys walked by, saw us, opened the door enough to let air in, got help, and saved us. Those 2 guys were George Wendt and John Ratzenberger, also known as Norm and Cliff from Cheers. To make it rarer, they were at the hotel to visit Ted Danson. They went and got him once we were out, and they were all super nice, took pictures, signed autographs, and everything. In summary, Norm and Cliff from Cheers saved us from a stuck elevator, and we got to meet them and Ted Danson. Story 4. When I was in middle school, there was that advertisement campaign/contest with M&Ms where you would supposedly win $1 million if you found a gray one. I bought a bag of M&Ms out of a vending machine and was eating them in class. Noticed a gray one and showed it to my friend sitting next to me. I was about to eat it when he stopped me and reminded me that it was valuable. I took it up to my teacher, who actually stopped class to call the company about it. What they ended up telling him was the contest had already ended, so the best they could do was mail me a free bag of M&Ms. It was soul-crushing. I don't think I even bothered redeeming the free bag. Kept the gray M&M in a little plastic Easter egg in a little treasure box with other treasures of mine, like autographed ticket stubs and other similar things, but eventually threw it away. Story 5. I lent my sister one of my dresses for a wedding. During the ceremony, a bird pooped on the center of the chest. I wore the dress about 1 year later to a wedding, and a bird pooped on the chest again. Story 6. Once I was buying beer, and the guy at the gas station counter asked for my birthday. When I told him, he said it was also his birthday. The guy in line behind me also had the same birthday. We all showed our IDs. Sure enough, we all had the same birthday. Story 7. While riding my bike when I was about 9 years old, a several foot long and $50 in diameter pine tree branch impaled my left temple in such a way that it narrowly missed my ear, my eye, and brain. I was unconscious on the ground for an unknown amount of time. I awoke and walked into the backyard, and my dad looked like he saw a ghost. He then placed one hand on the side of my head and ripped out the branch with the other. Other than a few stitches, I made it out unscathed. Story 8. On 2 successive days, I walked up to the Department of Motor Vehicles counter to get my license renewed. On the first day, after waiting in line for about 20 minutes, I walked up to the counter, and as soon as I said, "Hello," the power went out. I waited for 15 minutes until they closed the office. The next day, it was busier, and I was in line for about an hour. I walked up to the counter, and as soon as I said, "I'm back," to the same agent, the power went out again. Story 9. Very nearly struck by lightning. I saw all white and felt the immense heat. It was absolutely terrifying. Story 10. I was on a Caribbean cruise, waiting for a tour at a port in Belize. We met another family and got to talking. "Where are you from?" "Oh, the United States." "Us too." "Where in the United States?" "We live in state." "So do we." "Where in state?" "About 30 minutes north of major city." "We do too." "We're in town." "No way. We're also in town. We live just off road." "Are you kidding? We live off road too." "What neighborhood?" It's called My Neighborhood, and that's how I met some of my neighbors for the first time on a cruise more than 1,000 miles away from where we both lived. Story 11. I used to always run into my mom's best friend at the most random places around town. A few years ago, I moved 3,000 miles across the country. A couple of months ago, I was walking my dog, and who do I run into? My mom's best friend. She was visiting her sister, who lives literally on the next street over from me. Our houses can't be more than 1,000 feet apart. Story 12. I watched a man die on a plane, and a few months later watched another man die on a train. No one travels with me. Story 13. My twin brother and I were born months prematurely due to our biological mother being on drugs. We were both immediately rushed to a children's hospital and placed on ventilators. We weren't expected to survive. Our biological mother was at a different hospital being taken care of after our birth and never attempted to return to us. A representative of Child Protective Services eventually reached out to a local foster parent who had tons of experience and certifications in childcare. She took us in, nurtured us to health, loved us, and ended up adopting us both so we wouldn't be separated. I call her mom, and she left this earth on June 9th, 2016. She was our guardian angel then, and I know she still is to this day. I believe many kids get lost and mistreated in the system. My brother and I were a couple of the lucky ones. Story 14. I went to a National Hockey League hockey game and won National Basketball Association basketball tickets. I went to the basketball game and won hockey tickets. Story 15. My daughter met a guy and got married. I met his parents and we got talking. His father and I had the same birthday, and we were born in the same hospital. We were roommates in the nursery. We lived in different towns. Story 16. Won the grand prize from some random cereal box, kind of like finding a golden ticket. Didn't even know there was a winner's card until my sister saw it inside the box. Won $100, laugh out loud. My mother won something similar when she was young from a Coke bottle and was featured in the town's newspaper. Story 17. I witnessed the totality of an eclipse on my birthday. I figure this is pretty rare and has probably happened to less than 1% of anyone that has ever lived. Story 18. Not the funniest story of all here, but I missed 2 terror attacks due to being broke. In 2017, in St. Petersburg, my subway pass expired, and I decided to take a bus instead, an easier way to travel without paying the fare. I read the news about the subway explosion while riding on the bus. In 2024, in Moscow, I work Monday through Thursday late shifts, and the band Picnic played here in St. Petersburg on the 27th of March, Wednesday. So I decided to go for the Moscow show instead. That was on Friday. A sewer clog and all fun money going literally down the drain. No money left. Plans ditched. You know how that show turned out. Story 19. Picture this. I'm at the airport, running late for my flight, and of course, the security line is a mile long. Just when I'm about to resign myself to missing my plane, the person in front of me turns around and says, "Hey, I have a spare first-class ticket. Want it?" Turns out they had won it in a contest but couldn't use it. Talk about winning the travel lottery. Story 20. A bird defecated through the open sunroof in a car moving at speed directly into the top pocket of my shirt while I was sitting in the back seat. Story 21. I worked a job that required us to obtain our customers' social security numbers. The last 6 digits of one of my customers' social security number matched my last 6, which is theoretically a 1 in a million possibility. I say theoretically because the assignment of social security numbers isn't completely random, at least at the time she and I would have been assigned one, but it still is statistically one of the most unlikely things that has happened to me. Story 22. A hair was in my food that I didn't notice, so I continued eating. Halfway through, I felt the hair in my mouth, tried to pull it out, but it felt stuck. Somehow the hair threaded into a taste bud on my tongue, literally pierced through it, and then tied itself into a knot. I had to go to the dentist because I was so confused how I suddenly grew a 6-inch long hair out of my tongue, since I couldn't figure out any other explanation. They were able to cut it out, but the dentist said in all his 30 years of practicing, he had never seen or heard of anything like that before. Story 23. I befriended the lead singer of the band that I was obsessed with throughout childhood and into my early 20s. Ended up touring with them a bit, worked for the guy for years, and lived in his guest house for a long time, too. Still seems unreal. Story 24. I've just been diagnosed with a second completely different but incredibly rare tumor, with 0.5 millimeters from the site of the last one. My medical team says it's like winning the lottery twice. Only I win tumors. I am not amused. Story 25. When I was 24, a car accident put me in a month-long coma. I didn't see a light or anything. I just felt myself slipping away into a chasm of darkness, and I fought with everything to live. I flatlined 5 times and underwent trauma surgery, received 8 units of blood plasma. I'm sure that gave me a lot of interesting dreams too. Then a month of sleep. Then I woke up. I remember being angry that the hospital room window blinds were open. It was so bright. I woke up intubated, chest tubes, 12-gauge needles in both arms, all left ribs broken. Left humerus broken so thoroughly that a titanium rod was hammered through the marrow running the entire length of it. Shattered L4 and L5. Crushed C6 and C7, traumatic brain injury, closed head injury. I think that's it. Oh, bruised liver and spleen, and of course exploratory surgery. Then rehab. So much rehab. I had to live at a rehabilitation facility for a month or so. You really find out what you're made of in a situation like that. I wanted to crawl into a ball and give up, but I fought so hard every day to learn how to walk again and tie my shoes. I had to learn how to do everything again. Think, talk, and comprehend. My left arm was so completely mangled I thought I looked like a velociraptor. I climbed the steepest mountain of pain and perseverance to regain full functionality of my left arm and hand. Now I even yo-yo with both hands, so I'm definitely doing much better. I now have a difficult time even connecting through my memories to who I was back then. I spent the next 2 decades being prescribed tons of opiates. That sucked. I called it quits on that cycle and quit everything in 2020. I'm so much happier now. There was a moment in the first rehab that I found myself staring at the different bright, colorful big rubber bands used for strength training. The colors were so beautiful, and they imprinted onto my soul, and I was struck with this monumental feeling of gratitude. I felt that feeling every morning since I woke up. Since September 17th, 1998, I've worked hard to become whole again. One good thing that happened, though. I was born into the Jehovah's Witness cult. I hated every single second of it. The head injury somehow knocked all the dogma and indoctrination out of my head. It was the weirdest thing. Before the coma, I was afraid of the sky falling, and I always felt guilty and ashamed and scared. Then afterward, it was like my brain got reset. Honestly, all of the pain and horrors of that accident were worth it because it set me free. It showed me who my parents were too. They wanted to let me die, no blood transfusions, silly rule. But fortunately, my wife was in control of those decisions. I don't know why I'm talking about all this. Maybe I just needed to get it out. Maybe it'll help someone. I hope it helps someone. Story 26. When I worked at Pizza Hut as a teenager, I was messing around after checking off my last task on the closing list and went, "Woo!" and tossed the pen up over my back. A coworker at the same time came out of the walk-in with a big box of cheese, and the pen came flipping down right as he was briskly walking past me and went perfectly into his back pocket. Story 27. Almost died from meningococcal meningitis at age 18 in 1995. This was before the vaccine. It happened on Mother's Day. Luckily, I was home from college, and my parents recognized something was very, very wrong, not just the flu. Story 28. When I was about 10, I went skiing in a small Swiss resort called Klosters. I accidentally took someone else's ski boots at the airport. Our ski boots had the same branded bag, and he took mine. I even opened the bag to check inside to make sure it was mine, but upon seeing a red pair of boots inside, I was convinced it was mine, and the same for him. Well, we were both wrong. The bag belonged to another Swedish boy, named Anders, whose name was on the boots, I later discovered. Anyway, the next day, his mother came over to our chalet and swapped boots, and that was the end of it. 5 years later, I was at a summer camp and became very good friends with a boy named Anders. One day, he had a t-shirt with the ski resort Klosters on it. I said, "Wow, I went there too." He said, "How funny." But when I went, some idiot stole my ski boots. That was me.